Welcome back to another Echo Masterclass. Today we have a very special guest for you. Today we have the world-class coach, Brandon Mulrenin. He has perfected the art of working with for sale by owner clients. That's right, FSBO listings. This is the one that you've been waiting for. Brandon, welcome and thank you so much for being here.
I appreciate being on the show. Happy to help.
Absolutely. Well, Brandon, we're going to jump right into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself, the industry that you're in, and how you got started.
Awesome. So I am in the Metro Detroit market. Been in the real estate industry now for about 15 years. Started off on the mortgage side and for half my career, and then spent the second half now in real estate. Grew a large real estate team before opening my real estate brokerage firm that I own today with about 150 agents. And built my business through becoming a listing agent and primarily working for sale by owners. And how I got started was just like everybody else, following the traditional famous real estate trainers and gurus, using high pressure sales tactics, overcoming objections, pressuring people. And that was okay. About 6 or 7 years ago, I started to stop selling the consumer and start serving the consumer, which is what I call today reverse selling. And that is what took me, Jaime, from 30, 40 deals a year to 100 listings a year. And about 4.5 years ago, I started training real estate agents on my for sale by owner process. And today we train about 300 or 400 agents all over the country in my exact system. So here we are today, and we're having a lot of fun.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it's actually that FSBO domination, right? That's the system. That's what the system's called.
Yep.
So it's actually how I ran across your channel. It was in 2018, if I remember correctly, and I commented on one of the videos. And what stood out to me is that you actually gave me a call. So
Yeah.
that doesn't happen all too often. And we just had a good conversation. We've stayed connected off and on through then, and just seeing the videos and the progression of your channel and all of the content that you put out there is just crazy good. And it's different than what you see out there. You pegged it perfectly with the pressure, what's been out there and what's still out there of pressure, 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 sign on dotted line, don't leave the house without the signature at all cost and everything else like that. But what you do in doing the cold call videos, doing strategy videos, actually showing agents all across the country what you coach your own agents and your brokerage is just crazy. So can you tell us a little bit more and walk us through your FSBO domination strategy? Because I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a good place to start is recognizing some of the common mistakes that traditional real estate trainers have been teaching for 20, 30, 40 years. And that is this. One of the biggest mistakes that I see agents making when they start focusing on prospecting for sale by owners is this theory around trying to convince the for sale by owner that they are wrong for trying to sell their house on their own, that they are wrong for trying to save money. And that's the first mistake. And so a lot of agents, when they hear this for the first time, it takes them a while, Jaime, to really understand my process, my concept, what it is that I teach. But I take the complete opposite approach. I teach my students to not be confrontational, to try to convince or sell them why they're wrong, but rather support them on their decision on why they're right. So that's the first piece of the entire system, is as you are communicating with for sale by owners, and I teach a bunch of different strategies: phone call, text, email, direct mail campaigns, all of the different ways that we prospect a for sale by owner. Our messaging is coming from a place of contribution, trying to help the for sale by owner sell the property on their own. And for a lot of real estate agents, they just can't handle that. They're like, I don't understand. Why would you do that? And so I do that for this reason. Every real estate agent that's going to watch this either now or in the future knows what I'm about to say is true. And that is this. Yes, the market goes up and down, but for the most part, the vast majority of for sale by owners end up listing their property with a real estate agent in about 6 to 8 weeks. Now, every real estate agent says, yeah, Brandon, so I know that, NAR puts out those stats all the time. Well, think about this. If we all know that, why are we getting in our own way? The chances of a for sale by owner listing their home with an agent on day one is almost 0%. Yet, every real estate agent is taught to call them to use these high pressure sales tactics to try to convince them to list their property on day one. Makes no sense at all. They get a lot of rejection. The for sale by owner says, never call me again. You don't get it. I don't like realtors. I'm never listing with an agent. I teach my students to call them and essentially agree that they should try to sell their property on their own, and that if they can't, sometime down the road in the future, then and only then should they look at some other opportunities. And so when we start off the relationship that way, the for sale by owner says, oh my gosh, why doesn't every real estate agent get what you're saying? So that's part one. Part one is leading with contribution, focusing on the relationship with the for sale by owner, because we know they're not going to list their property now anyway. That's part one. Part two is this. Part two is focusing on getting face to face. Okay. The reason why that is so important is this. Anytime you have a communication with a prospect over the telephone or over an email, over text, they are somebody that they are not when you get face to face. They're going to give you all kinds of resistance and objections. They're going to be rude to you over these mediums. But when you get face to face, everything is different. And so it took me, literally, Jaime, it took me like 6 years in my career before I had this huge epiphany. I kept trying to focus on overcoming their objections over the telephone because that's what I was being taught to do by all these trainers and all these coaches. And I said, you know what? What if I just stayed agreeable with them on the phone, focused on getting face to face, and I did just that. And when I got face to face, here's what I learned. What I learned was on the phone, they would tell me, Brandon, I am never listing my home, ever, 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 ever. But then when I got face to face, they said something completely different. They said, well, if we can't sell this, yeah, we'd be looking at some other options. And I said, oh, there it is. I just cracked the code. And that is focusing on getting face to face, regardless of what they tell you over the phone. Because when you get face to face, you can get the truth. You can have a real connection. You can start building a real relationship. And most agents never get to experience that because of what all the trainers are telling them to do is smash them over the phone, tell them they're wrong, overcome their objection, pressure, 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 and they never get the face-to-face meeting. So part two is focusing on getting face-to-face, all right? Now, part three, which is the part that most real estate agents absolutely struggle with the most, is the follow-up, right? Regardless of what you do, regardless if you generate leads online, offline, free, paid, prospecting, marketing, doesn't matter. All of the results live in a real estate agent's ability to follow up consistently over time. So I've got a whole strategy with follow-up calls and text messages and emails and direct mail and Facebook retargeting ads that I teach our students to follow up with the for sale by owner on a consistent basis over 6 to 8 weeks until the day comes, Jaime, where the for sale by owner says, you know what, I've had enough. And then my students become the obvious choice because we were the only ones not pressuring them, giving them great information, helping them sell on their own, leading with contribution. And what we know is this, the law of reciprocity says this, the more you help people, the more they will want to help you in return. So we're never pressuring them so that when the day comes where they say, okay, I'm ready to look at other options, me and my students get those listing opportunities, which brings us to part number 4. Part number 4 in my system is what I call the reverse selling listing consultation. And so I teach my students a 7-step listing presentation to go through with for sale by owners so that they can get, they can have a seller for the very first time be inspired to work with a real estate agent, where it's easy for them to walk out of there with a listing contract signed, where you have the seller pricing the property correctly from day one without you even having to ask for it, because I use a method called what I call it reverse selling, but it's through a line of questioning.
Mm.
right? And so all it is a question-based presentation. It's called the Socratic method. And so those are the 4 things that I teach agents, and I help them walk through that process.
Ooh. There's no way I can unpack all of that. That is amazing. That was great. Really, what stood out to me from the very beginning was seeing one of your videos and you articulating it right now with the step 1 on people are calling, agents are calling, and just by the mere call, you're not only insinuating, but sometimes you articulate it that they're wrong, that you're articulating, that you're sharing with them that, hey, you are wrong. Let the professionals do it. Step aside,
Right.
do this, that, or the other. So no wonder everybody gets a little bit testy on the phone, which
That's
kind of
right.
brings into that second point of getting into face to face, because you are absolutely right. On the phone, you can almost like a keyboard warrior, right? You could say whatever you want on social media, blah 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 blah, and you can do whatever you want on the phone. But when you're in front of somebody, you're not going to say the same things that you are very comfortable sending off in an email or saying on the phone. That makes absolute perfect sense.
That's
That is
exactly right.
perfect.
Yeah. And so it takes a while for a real estate agent to understand and grasp that what we're doing, because you've got all these big famous real estate trainers, gurus telling them to do the opposite, you know? And so when they hear this message for the first time, they get actually a little skeptical at first. Like, why would you do that? Why would you just go meet all these? Why would you waste your time going to meet all these for sale by owners when it's not a real listing appointment? And it's for the reasons that we just talked about.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, let's talk about we've been speaking about for sale by owners clearly, but let's talk about niching down, and
Yes.
because that is something that I find that real estate agents, like for what I do, the online space, online strategist, we we've been talking about Facebook ads 1 month, and then on our next month or our next week call, hey, I've been trying to I would like to do Google ads. Well, no, 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 no. We just set up an entire system, an entire strategy on Facebook ads. We're not going to go over to Google ads and set up landing pages, work on split testing all these ads, have you spend $1,000 to see significant return that you expect to see. We need to stay the path. What do you say to those agents that are a little bit apprehensive or really sometimes can't help themselves with in regards to niching down and really focusing on first sale by owners? What do you say to them?
Yeah. So one thing I always say is it's not what you teach, it's what you emphasize as trainers, right? So the thing is, with anything, it goes back to that old theory on generalists versus the general practitioner versus the specialist. And when you relate that to a real estate agent, they kind of have this moment where, like, oh, wow, that kind of makes sense. Why the brain surgeon makes millions of dollars a year and the family practitioner on the corner is making $80,000 a year salary. Both went to the same line of schooling, right? But here's the thing with real estate agents, the reason why they have this scarcity mindset and are trying everything is their discipline, focus, and commitment levels just aren't there because there's no accountability in this industry. So you have an agent by themselves in their basement, right? Calling a for sale by owner, using a bad approach they get hung up on, and they say, oh, that doesn't work. Let me call Jaime. Let me do some Facebook ads. They do a Facebook ad for a week. They don't get a listing. Oh, Facebook ads don't work. And so they're not allowing things to manifest over time because they don't understand this one thing, and that is pipeline maturity. They don't understand the compound effect of their efforts that will manifest later if they stayed with something long enough. And it's just like working out. You don't go into the gym one time and come out with six-pack abs. It takes time.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. Brandon, if an agent watching or when an agent is watching this video and wants to learn more about your system, working with you, connecting with you, where can they go?
Yeah, the easiest place is fizbodomination.com. They can learn all about our training program there, or they can check out my YouTube channel. Maybe we'll put a link to that in the description. I do a
Absolutely.
lot of free training on that. So those are the two places.
Awesome. Awesome. Do you have any parting thoughts or something that you would give us, especially in this time with the C word, right? With this uncertainty right now? What can you say to the real estate agents right now when there's a lot of question marks and, not just the real estate industry, everywhere?
Yeah. Stop selling and start serving. This is this thing I keep saying. Start coming from a place of contribution, because here's what we know: people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? And so, everyone, when I say that, they're like, I get it, I get it. Well, if you get it, start serving your consumer, start serving your community before you start putting your hands out and asking for things in return. And if people can do that, regardless of industry, I think they're going to find themselves in a great spot in their business to win.
Perfect. Perfection. Brandon, thank you so much.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.